JT Sports Match, you guys, with another video, and I'm here with the Cleveland Browns 2019 safety preview. Going to be going through all of the Cleveland Browns safeties that they currently have on their roster. Now, everybody requested me to do the Cleveland Browns defensive back. Yesterday, I did the Cleveland Browns cornerbacks, and if you guys want to go check out that video, it will be a card to that video if you guys want to go ahead and check that out. And I'm now finishing up the rest of the defensive backs doing the safeties. Now, if you guys have a video or a certain team that you guys want me to do, make sure to comment that team down in the comment section down below. And also make sure to comment the position that you want me to do for that team as well. And also make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Little NFL videos and NFL content. And a lot of NFL YouTube channels, they're not going in depth like I am, doing all these position previews and stuff like that. And this is the most in depth NFL football channel that you will find on YouTube. Now, all these other YouTube channels, yeah, they go in depth for their specific teams, but I'm going in depth on all 32 NFL teams. And then when training camp comes around in July, I'm going to be doing training camp previews. Going to be having a lot of guys on here giving the insights of what to look for. So if you guys want a reason to subscribe to the channel, that's the reason right there. So the Cleveland Browns safety position, let's get into it. First guy we have on this list is Demario Randall. Demario Randall was pretty solid in 2018. He had 85 tackles, 4 interceptions, and had 9 pass deflections. He was pretty solid for the most part. I forgot what his pro football focus grade was. But overall, I think Demario Randall, he's a very versatile guy. He's a safety who has very solid man coverage and zone skills. And his man coverage skills are pretty above average to be a safety because he also played a little bit of cornerback also. So he's a very versatile guy. So he's one of my favorite safeties in the NFL. Very good, very talented, can do a lot of things for that Cleveland secondary. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do this coming season. Of course, they got rid of Jabril Peppers. They traded him to the New York Giants. So it's going to be interesting to see how big of a season Demario Randall is going to be back there. I think he's going to end up being pretty productive this year. Next up, we have Jermaine Whitehead. Jermaine Whitehead had 24 tackles, no interceptions, and 2 pass deflections. Now, this is a guy who I don't think is really going to do a lot. I don't even think he's going to get a lot of playing time for the Cleveland Browns this season. I think Jermaine Whitehead is a guy, if he makes the roster, he makes the roster just based on his special teams ability. But if he does get on the field and sees a little bit of playing time, it will most likely would be due to injuries or maybe one of the guys need a break. But for what I read, for the most part, Jermaine Whitehead is most likely going to make the roster based on special teams. Now, if this guy ends up being the starter, then I'll be really, really surprised. But from the stuff that I read, he's most likely going to be a guy who is going to be special teams. So that's probably how he's going to end up making the roster, and he has some backup potential as well. Next up, we have Morgan Burnett. Now, Morgan Burnett was not really happy with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It didn't really work out. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they attempted to trade him, but that didn't work. So they ended up letting him go. And 1 week in the free agency, Morgan Burnett got signed by the Cleveland Browns. Now, Morgan Burnett with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I never thought that him and the Pittsburgh Steelers were a good fit. And I was never really that high on him with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But with the Cleveland Browns, I think he is a pretty solid fit for the Cleveland Browns. Um, for the most part, he has been pretty consistent and productive for most of his career. He's not one of the best safeties in the NFL, but he's an average, okay safety that you can put in, and he can make a few plays for you. Last season, he had 30 tackles, didn't have any interceptions, but had 6 pass deflections. So Morgan Burnett with the Cleveland Browns, I think that's a pretty solid fit. Going to be interesting to see what he does there with the Cleveland Browns, and is he even going to start? I think he should be able to start because the Cleveland Browns, basically, they're still trying to figure out who's going to be the starters in that secondary after trading away Jabril Peppers. So basically, they're having a safety competition. But if I had to take my bet, I bet Morgan Burnett would be one of those starters there. And he's pretty good, has pretty good size, and he's a pretty solid tackler. He's a veteran, has a lot of experience there, very disciplined. So, going to be eager to see how good Morgan Burnett is going to be for the Cleveland Browns and that Cleveland Browns secondary. And overall, I think the Cleveland Browns have a pretty solid secondary. If you guys saw my cornerback preview for the Cleveland Browns, then you guys know that I'm very, very high on this Cleveland Browns secondary. The weakness is probably the only weakness on the defense is actually the safety position. So I think if they're able to get this safety position figured out, they're going to be very, very dangerous. And I think Morgan Burnett is a guy that you want back there. He's experienced, like I said, and he's also pretty consistent as well. Next up, we have one of my favorites, Sheldrick Redwine. Now, out of the University of Miami, the Cleveland Browns drafted him in this year's NFL draft. Sheldrick Redwine. Now, this guy is a very physical safety. He's a very good tackler, and he's all right in coverage. But for the most part, most of the plays that he made with the Miami Hurricanes were just big plays when he was a very good, very physical safety, and that's what he's going to bring with the Cleveland Browns. He's going to get the Cleveland Browns a safety that's a very solid tackler that makes a lot of plays, hard hitting, going to punish wide receivers from coming across the middle. And he was one of my favorite Hurricanes on that Miami Hurricanes defense because for those of you guys who don't know, I am a Miami Hurricanes fan. So Cedric Redwine, I was very excited when he got drafted by the Cleveland Browns. I think he has a very good opportunity to start, and I think he's going to make the most of it. And I think he's going to see some playing time this season, no matter if it's injuries or just getting subbed in a couple of formations. Now, I'm not saying he's not going to. I'm not saying he's going to have a lot of playing time, but I expect him to get a couple of snaps during the regular season, and he also probably will have probably a good chance of starting. I'm not going to say that he's the front runner to be the starter, but I think he has a pretty doggone good chance. Cedric Redwine is one of my favorite Miami Hurricane players from last season. I think he was really, really underrated going into this year's NFL draft. And this guy, like I said, he's very physical, and he brings a certain attitude, a certain swagger to that Cleveland Browns defense. And that's what he's going to bring with the Cleveland Browns. He's going to bring you intensity. He's going to bring you a physical safety who can punish wide receivers that come across the middle, make a lot of tackles. So Cedric Redwine, he's a guy that I'm really high on. I think he's going to end up being pretty solid with the Cleveland Browns. And with the next couple of years, I expect him to become a starting safety, no matter if it's with the Cleveland Browns or another team. But Cedric Redwine is definitely a guy that people need to look out for and take notice of because I think this guy has a lot of potential. And if he improves in coverage a little bit more, he has the potential to be a very, very good safety at the NFL level, probably Pro Bowl caliber. Now that was pretty much his weakness, his ability in coverage. He wasn't the most consistent guy at the University of Miami when it came to coverage, but overall, he still is pretty solid. He's not terrible, but just needs a little bit more work in that department. But overall, Cedric Redwine was a very good draft pick by the Cleveland Browns, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do with the Cleveland Browns this season and 2019. Next up, we have Tiggy. I'm not even going to say his last name, but this guy played for the London Warriors in the British American Football League. The Cleveland Browns signed him a year ago, back in 2018, and they put him in the International Player Development Program. Now, for those of you guys who don't know what that is, basically it's a program that gives players that come from overseas time to develop. So the Cleveland Browns, when they do their roster cuts, with Tiggy, since he's in that program, he doesn't have to get cut. So let's say they're doing their roster cuts, trimming down the roster from 90 to 53. So let's say Tiggy doesn't make the 53-man roster. So instead of releasing him because he hasn't developed like how they wanted him to, he gets put on the practice squad. Now, if the practice squad, normally it's a certain amount of players that you're allowed to have on the practice squad, but in the international player development program, players like Tiggy, they are basically exempt from that rule and they count as like an extra player. So let's say for the practice squad, you can only have 11 players. And Tiggy, being in the International Player Development Program, you can only have 11 players, but if you have a guy like Tiggy, he's basically exempt for that rule, and the rule doesn't really count. So you can add him to the practice squad without it really affecting your 11 spots. So then you'll just have 12 guys, and they won't really mess up anything, and he can go for the practice squad for a season or two. He can develop, and then the Cleveland Browns can decide to move him up to the main roster or not. Now, if he does end up making the main roster, then this rule really won't count anymore. But Tiggy Sanku, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He's 5'11", 214 pounds. So he's pretty muscular for a safety, pretty good size. Most of these guys that come overseas, they're pretty ripped. This dude is really ripped. He's pretty athletic as well. He's pretty raw at the safety position, has a lot of things that he needs to work on. But from the things that I've been reading, he's been coming along pretty solidly. So this is a guy who I think has a pretty good chance of making the roster and then making a contribution on special teams. So this is it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comment section down below. Also, comment some more teams and positions for that team that you guys want me to preview. Also, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and content. And thanks for watching.